Good evening. We're joined now by student athletes from Stephen F. Austin. We have with us Trey Pinkney, Thomas Walkup, and Demetrious Floyd. Their teammates are in the Stephen F. Austin locker room right now. The locker room is open for the next 30 minutes. In 15 minutes, Coach Brad Underwood will join us here in the main interview room. And until then, we have an opportunity for questions with Demetrious, Trey, and Thomas. First question, please raise your hand. We'll send Miss Iris over to you with the microphone.
Paul Gotham picking splinters, get the obvious out of the way. Pressing team, plays pressing team. The old adage is pressing teams don't like to be pressed. How do you think that plays out tomorrow for any one of you?
Well, we're going to start with Trey, and we're going to give the opportunity for Thomas to answer as well, and then Demetrious in that order.
Well, I believe that we handle pressure pretty well. If we go back to the first year that we made it to the NCAA tournament, when we played VCU, we did a really good job handling their pressure. So we're kind of going to take the same steps in this game because me and Thomas was a part of that team. We also have a couple guys that were there as well. So we prepared for it the same way, and we're going to handle the pressure to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, we have a ton of guys that are high IQ guys, can pass it, dribble it. So we're not, only relying on Trey to bring the ball up every time. We can help take some of the pressure off of him, and I think that'll go a long way as far as, valuing the basketball.
Yeah, we go through pressure every day during practice or whatever, so I feel like we should be able to handle pressure.
Continuing with questions for the student athletes from Stephen F. Austin. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll send the microphone to you. Please remember to state your name and media outlet before your question. Our next one's right in the middle to the right of the aisle.
Hi, it's Justin Jackson with the Dominion Post in Morgantown for Thomas. I'm just kind of wondering, how much does West Virginia's size advantage come into play for this game tomorrow, and what kind of things can you guys do to kind of negate what the size advantage that they might have and rebounding and things like that?
That is something that we've talked about a lot, but our physicality will have to negate some of that, and really it's attention to detail. No possessions where you miss a block out or everything has to be right down to detail so that we finish out possessions strong, and I think that's the best way.
Continuing with questions for the student athletes from Stephen F. Austin. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Any further questions for the student athletes from Stephen F. Austin? All right. Well, we'd like to thank Demetrious and Thomas and Trey for joining us. They're going to return to the locker room right now, which is still open, and they'll join their teammates for some more questions and answers in the locker room. Thanks, guys. Good luck. See you tomorrow. The Stephen F. Austin locker room is open until 5:45 p.m., and we'll be joined momentarily by Stephen F. Austin head coach Brad Underwood. I was saying we don't want to rush the coach out of the locker room because he's doing his ENG, television interviews with the cameras rolling and his Snapchatting and Vine videos and Twitter videos and stuff like that. A lot of people are covering the tournament that way. They just can't do it in this room. They have to do it in the other room, which we love. We understand that. We love that. It's correct. Just not here. Don't be shy in shouting out that score. We're joined now by Stephen F. Austin head coach Brad Underwood. We'll ask Coach Underwood to make an opening statement, then he'll take your questions.
Well, we're very excited about the opportunity to be here again. It's our third year in a row, and I'm extremely happy for the 5 seniors that were on this year's team. For them, they've set a great foundation for our program, a culture of work, and to be able to finish the year as conference champions and go 18-0. Got it up for 2 games. You talk about pressure. Is knowing you have to win 2 more to come to the tournament, but I couldn't be happier, and for that group they're very deserving. It's a great challenge playing a very good friend who has a tremendous basketball team, finishing second in the Big 12, and arguably the best conference in basketball. So I have tremendous respect for Bob and Hugs and the job that he and his staff have done. They play very hard, and we're going to have to match that effort tomorrow.
Coach Underwood, student athletes are in the Stephen F. Austin locker room right now for the next 15 minutes to take your questions. Coach is joining us here, and the first question for him belongs to Larry on the right side.
Larry Fleischer, Associated Press. You mentioned Coach Huggins. In the 1 year you spent working with him in 06-07 at Kansas State, what are some of the things that you picked up from him?
Well, there's 2 things that Hugs did that were unbelievably impressive to me, and one is as a head coach, I've never been around or had seen anyone who spent as much time recruiting as he did as a head coach. Fabulous recruiter and spent tremendous time. The other thing is he's the single best communicator with people and players that I've ever seen. Just had an unbelievable way of affecting young men in a positive way, and can get on them and get the best out of them on the basketball court, and then just so caring and so involved in their everyday life, and it's a reason he's been successful and is a Hall of Fame coach, and approaching 800 wins, and his players love him to death, and it was a great learning experience for me.
We're going to stay on the right side in the front. Mitch?
Mitch Vingel from the Charleston Gazette-Mail. Coach, I just wondered, you've got to tell us your best Huggins story.
Wow. Wow. I could get in a lot of trouble with this. No, I don't know if I want to get into a whole lot of that. There's so many. There's one thing about Hugs that people don't realize, because they see the intense, the passion, and yet he's a guy that is probably as easy to work for as anybody out there. And literally laughter is a part of his everyday life. I just photobombed one of his interviews over here and jumped in it just because I knew he'd do it to me. And it's something that he's funny, he's so magnetic. You know, and I'm going to say this on a serious note. He's got such a magnetic personality. When he left Kansas State to go to West Virginia, he impacted so many people's lives, and one of those was my wife's. And you know, I look over and she's crying when he's getting on the plane to head out. And you know, there's very few people who can do that. That's probably not a story that's funny, but it's so meaningful because it's who he is as a person. And you know, I think he's impacted a lot of people's lives, not just as players.
Next question's on the right side of the aisle.
Ralph Russo from the Associated Press. Brad, I guess 2 parts. West Virginia has its reputation for its up-tempo or its pressure defense. Your team pressures a lot. I guess for people who maybe haven't seen as much as your team, what's the difference between the pressures? And the other part of that, in a game like this, as a coach, as much as you want to value the basketball, do you have to sort of accept that there are going to be some turnovers here?
I hope there's not, and I hope there is. We're different in this way. Press Virginia, they're unbelievable in the full court, and it's not the way they press. It's the effort with which they do it with. And it's unrelenting for 40 minutes. They play so hard. A lot of people press, but it doesn't work. I like to think that we pick up full court some. We mix up our defenses in the full court, but ours is more half court oriented, taking passing lanes away, denial. We have a young man in Trey Pinkney at the point who's as good on the ball defender as I've been around in my time as a coach. But it's a culmination of we don't want anybody to have any one possession easy, whether it's a baseline out, whether it's a side out. There's total pressure on the offense the entire time, and over the course of 40 minutes, we've been able to force turnovers because of the little things, loose balls, taking charges, diving on the floor. All those things are things that we take a great deal of pride in, and we have to do tomorrow and win those battles if we're going to be successful.
Next question's on the right side.
Coach, Dan Wolfgang with the Mountaineer Sports Network. First off, final score, Yale won 79-75. Wanted to get your thoughts on stopping Devin Williams. He had 31 against Kansas in his last game, and it seems that that'll be a big focus for your team defensively in the half court.
Well, I don't know if you stop him. I think the one thing that he does an unbelievable job is he plays to contact. So he gets to the foul line a great deal. And then when you've got a team that is number 1 in the country in offensive rebound percentage in terms of getting the ball back, that's a great start. Try to keep him off the foul line. Try to make his touches hard, and then block him out. Now, a lot of people have tried that, and it's a credit to Devin because he's been successful in most every game out there. So, a very good player. We're going to have to work. We're going to throw a lot of bodies at him. We're not going to do it with one person. Sometimes the best post defense is good perimeter defense, and so we've got to make ourselves active and then just try to limit his touches the best we can, and then make sure we get a solid block out on him.
Continuing with questions for Coach Underwood. Any further questions for Coach? All right, thank you very much, Coach. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow night. Where tomorrow day? I keep forgetting.
7 o'clock.
See you tomorrow night.